Welcome to Good Grief Mama. I'm Allie, wife and mom of 3. And this podcast is for honest conversations about motherhood and marriage, homeschooling and homemaking. So if you've ever had the thought that maybe this motherhood and marriage thing could be done differently, or if you've ever wondered, why is no one talking about this? Then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you're here. Today's episode is sponsored by Restore Your Core Physical Therapy. So, mamas, whether you're pregnant, postpartum, or your kids are in college, your body deserves some TLC. The doctors at Restore Your Core Physical Therapy get it. From pelvic floor therapy to birth prep to fixing that back pain that you've been ignoring for way too long, they've got you covered. With locations in Carmel, West Carmel, Zionsville, and Greenwood, expert care is close by. Visit restoreyourcorept.com or call 317 597 6323. Make sure you mention the Good Grief Mama podcast for $50 off a 90-minute evaluation or $25 off a 60-minute evaluation. You have been taking care of everyone else, and now it's your turn. All right, Good Grief Mama listeners, welcome back to Good Grief Mama. Now, 4 years ago, this podcast started with 2 friends and some microphones who wanted to talk about motherhood and marriage. And a lot has changed since then. A lot has changed in our lives. You can see physically that some things have changed if you are watching us from YouTube, because yes, we're on YouTube. And I got to be honest, it's kind of freaking me out that people can see me right now. I think I'm overthinking it. So I have my computer in front of me. I'm going to be looking at my notes to make sure I don't go all over the place. Yeah, I'm going to try and treat this like a Marco Polo between friends. Have you guys, I think in our 2 episodes ago, Nicole and I talked about what Marco Polo was. So if you don't have Marco Polo or you didn't listen to that episode, it like a video app where you can like send video text messages basically to each other, but it's just videos. And so you're just talking basically to yourself, sending a message. That's how this feels right now. So I'm going to try and get used to this, but we are on YouTube. Anyway, so today I wanted to talk about, if you haven't listened to last week's episode, make sure you go back and listen to it, because Nicole really shares her heart behind why she's stepping down from the podcast. And so I want you to listen to her heart from that. But today I'm going to be talking about what's changing, what's staying the same, and what the future of Good Grief Mama podcast is, what this season is going to look like, and honestly, why I think this season is going to be the best yet. So what's changing? Obviously, we know Nicole is stepping down from the podcast, so it's going to be your girl, Allie, here. We also know, though, that we're on YouTube, like I mentioned a couple of times already. So if you are watching us from YouTube, thank you for joining in. Make sure you subscribe so that you can stay with us. If you're watching on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, then you're listening, because I don't think I put video on there. But you can hop over and see me on YouTube. And the change. So we know, obviously, last week, Nicole gave her heart and what was happening, so go back and listen to that to see, why that change happened. But also, there's just been a lot of shifts that have happened in life. I mean, this podcast started 4 years ago, which feels like a very long time. At the same time, it feels like not a very long time. But in 4 years, I've gone from thinking about homeschooling and hoping to homeschool to now I am homeschooling. My son is kindergarten/first grade. He's doing first grade reading and he's doing first grade math, but he's in kindergarten and we're almost done with that, which is wild. I have a homeschool group that I've been running for 2 years, and I've been doing a lot more shifting in our household too, a lot more crunchy shifts, a lot more intentional living shifts, and changes in what we're doing as we are raising our kids. And so there's just been a lot of shifting. And that's where I want the direction of the podcast to go. I want it to kind of ebb and flow with how my life is and how our life is growing, because I think that's the most relatable thing, is to talk about what you're actually dealing with. So I am certainly not, Good Grief Mama is certainly not abandoning motherhood and marriage. In fact, I think it's the opposite. It'll be a deeper dive into motherhood and marriage and what's happening right now. And so some topics that are going to show up more, that are already showing up, but will show up more or in a different, deeper way, are intentional motherhood. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see behind me, I have 3 children, right? So my house is not the most organized, and I homeschool. So you can see like the homeschool supplies and all this stuff, but being more intentional about motherhood. And then also more intentional talking about homeschooling. I get a ton of questions about homeschooling on social media. And so that is going to be one of the very first episodes we do after this one. I'll talk more about my homemaking. And I've mentioned a couple times like our crunchy shifts. I am going to wrangle Nathan to come on the podcast, my husband, and tell us what he really feels about the crunchy shifts that I've been making. And you definitely won't want to miss that because while he has bought into some of the crunchy shifts that I have introduced, many of them he was very, very skeptical about when I initially introduced them. So that will be one of the episodes that we definitely do. I'm also going to be talking more about how we raise our kids and the choices that we've made for our kids. The probably number two thing that I get the most questions about other than homeschooling on social media is about our choice as it concerns vaccines. And so I will definitely do at least one episode talking about why we've chosen what we've chosen as far as vaccines. And yeah, that'll be one of those topics that is, I feel like a little controversial, but also it's one of those things where everybody's like wondering and nobody really wants to talk about it, or not very many people want to talk about it. So I still want this podcast, though, to be a place where you as women, most of the people who listen to us are women, you as women can feel seen, really feel like you fit in somewhere where maybe you don't fit into the mainstream of, your marriage is perfect or your kids are perfect. And you also don't fit in with the people who give off that they're just complaining about their kids or they're, you know, really falling into the husband bashing culture. If you didn't listen to my husband bashing episode a couple episodes ago, you should listen to that. That's where this podcast is right in the middle. I'm not going to pretend like I'm perfect because I am not. I am not the perfect wife. I am not the perfect mother. But I'm also not going to join in with the culture that just complains about their children or thinks that children are not a blessing. And then same as it goes for marriage, where I'm not here to bash my husband. I have a great husband. We're not perfect, but I think that marriage is something that's a blessing. So it's that middle ground. And that's where this podcast is. So I hope that you're still loving this and that you're excited about this new season because I really do think that it will be one of the best seasons yet. Things that are not changing. I'm still going to talk about the things that might be awkward or uncomfortable or that people might shy away from talking about. I am still going to talk about the why is no one talking about this topics and the kind of like, I'm going to say what everybody else is thinking vibes. And this is going to be a place of honesty. It's not going to be a place where I'm coming here and pretending again to be perfect because I am not. Right. Conversations though can go a little deeper. I'm pretty excited about that because we can go from, motherhood, we're having a problem with this area to exploring how can we do it different and thinking of different ways like what is a way we can do this motherhood thing differently? What is a way we can do marriage differently? And I want to talk about rhythms and routines and values and priorities and choosing intentional family culture. And then I also want to talk about how we have chosen, to live differently or the different choices that we have made. And that is what this podcast, the heart of this podcast is going to be, is my experiences, my opinions, my choices, and none of this stuff that I ever say will be medical advice. I am not a doctor. None of the stuff that I ever say will be, you must do this advice because I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a whatever. This is just another mom sharing to another mom over Marco Polo some experiences and opinions. So, what I hope that you will walk away with this season is hope for your marriage, that it can be something you can enjoy, that it's something to treasure, it's something to prioritize, and intentionality in motherhood, that you don't have to just be ruled by routines, by the fast pace of this life, that you can choose to slow down and do things differently with your family, with your kids. You have the permission to do that and that you have the courage to do that because it's not just you who's thinking that. And I want you to just leave this season thinking my family life, my motherhood, my marriage can be done differently and better. So what's coming next? I am going to dive into why we chose homeschooling. I don't know what this was. This is me diving. I'm going to dive into why we chose homeschooling and when that really started, because I didn't always think I would homeschool. In fact, I did not think I was going to homeschool. And that change happened, that shift happened pretty quickly, actually. And, once I get my mind on something, I pretty much am going to do it. So once that change happened, it was almost unstoppable. But I'm going to dig into why we chose homeschooling. I'm also going to bring my husband on again. I mentioned this. He's going to come on and talk about what he really thinks about the crunchy changes that I've made. What does he really think about chopping up an onion and putting it in our room when we're sick? And I want to bring on guests. I love bringing on guests. I've brought them on before. We've brought them on before. And so not just my husband, but I have a friend who just had her, I think, third home birth. And I'm totally going to bring her on and have her talk about it. And then I have a couple other guests in mind talking about working with your husband in a professional manner. And of course, we got to bring back Amy, from our sponsor from Restore Your Core, just because her episodes are always the most listened to, because everybody is like, they want to know about their pelvic floor and the issues that you can have with it, but they're like maybe too embarrassed to ask. I know 4 years ago when we first started this podcast, pelvic floor physical therapy was something that nobody talked about. I mean, nobody. I didn't even hear about it until I was having issues. And even then, I didn't hear about it. I heard about it on a random webinar from an exercise mom group that I was a part of. They brought her on as an informational thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm struggling with all of this stuff and nobody is talking about it. So it's talked about more now, but I feel like there's more random people out there talking about it. So I like to bring on a good quality expert, someone whose bread and butter is the pelvic floor, and that's Amy. So we'll bring her back on too. But this season, make sure you're following along with me. Good Grief Mama Podcast on Instagram. Make sure you sign up for our free newsletters. Leave us a rating review. Click the subscribe button on YouTube so that we can be seen by other people. And I'm so excited. If you want to do motherhood and marriage, momming and wifing, whatever sounds better. If you want to do those things different, then I'm excited for you to be a part of this season.